Welcome back, everyone. We've got a lot to cover today, from Bitcoin mining to AI, even tree sap beverages.
It sounds like it's going to be a wild ride in the markets.
First up, Riot Platforms, the Bitcoin mining company. Sticking to their strategy, it seems.
Yeah, their CEO, Jason Less, he's all about keeping those production costs down.
Which is interesting, right? Because you've got MicroStrategy going in on those structured products to boost their Bitcoin yield.
Totally different approach. Riot's looking at alternative financing, but not, at least not yet, those MicroStrategy style products.
For folks who need a refresher, that Bitcoin yield measures how much a company's Bitcoin holdings per share change over time.
Yeah.
Super important in this market.
For sure. And it seems like Riot is, betting on their efficiency.
Interesting to see how it plays out. Now, switching gears a bit, we've got InChains Group. They're into altcoin mining and Web3 applications. Big news is they're presenting at the ROth conference in California.
Oh yeah, the RF conference, always a big one for investors, especially in tech.
Absolutely. Keep an eye on that one. And speaking of tech, DMG Blockchain Solutions. Bold move into generative AI.
Really is. I mean, the speed, right, acquiring a whole data center specifically for generative AI.
And it meets SCIF specs, which means it's built for, like, really sensitive info.
Exactly. Could attract some big clients, even government agencies.
And their financing, tied to future revenue, shows confidence for sure.
Definitely a bet on the future of AI. All right, on to something a little more controversial. SpaceX is looking to put Starlink terminals in the FAA's airspace network.
Big potential win for SpaceX, but raises some questions about conflicts of interest, right?
Of course, the FAA regulates SpaceX launches.
Plus, Verizon has that big contract to upgrade that same system.
Yeah, this could shake things up a bit.
And don't forget, SpaceX has competition in the satellite internet market. Getting into the FAA's infrastructure, big advantage.
Big advantage. Okay, changing topics again. Peter Schiff, he's always been skeptical of Bitcoin, and he's not holding back on his criticism of MicroStrategy's strategy, using debt to buy Bitcoin.
Yeah, Schiff's saying it hurt their stock price highlights the risks of tying a company's value so closely to Bitcoin.
Goes back to that fundamental debate, right? Solid investment or bubble waiting to burst.
MicroStrategy's made their choice. Schiff thinks it's a gamble. Okay, moving on to more traditional markets. NASDAQ, they've announced early results for their cash tender offers to buy back some of their debt.
And they increased the amount.
Yeah, sign of confidence, right?
Absolutely. Strategic move to manage their debt, good signal to investors.
For sure. Now, AI chips, big demand.
Huge. NVIDIA, they're seeing massive orders, especially from those Chinese tech giants.
Like Tencent, Alibaba, ByteDance.
Exactly. This is all after the rise of DeepSeek, that Chinese company. Their low-cost AI models are changing the game.
Seems like everyone wants a piece of that AI pie.
And NVIDIA is sitting pretty, dominating that AI chip market. Meanwhile, Cathie Wood's ARK Invest, they've been buying up Amazon shares.
Another sign of confidence.
Seems so. Aligns with JP Morgan's positive outlook on Amazon. Top pick for 2025, they said.
And ValueAct Holdings, they've invested heavily too.
A lot of faith in Amazon's future growth.
Definitely. On a more serious note, data breach at Lucent Health Solutions.
Compromised personal and medical info of thousands. There's an investigation, maybe even a class action lawsuit.
Big reminder about cybersecurity, especially with such sensitive data.
Absolutely crucial. Speaking of security, though, different kind. Elon Musk's X platform, remember, formerly Twitter.
Yeah.
They're apparently looking for new funding at a valuation of $44 billion. Same price Musk paid for it.
After all the turbulence, this suggests some growing confidence in X's comeback.
Could be. Interesting to see how it plays out. Okay, some news from the UK. Energy costs. They're expected to rise again. New price cap from Ofgem.
Tough news for those already struggling with the cost of living.
Definitely adds to the pressure. And speaking of pressure, DBS Bank, Singapore's biggest bank, they're planning to cut thousands of jobs.
Wow, thousands.
Over the next few years, yeah. They're implementing AI tech, automating roles.
Makes you think about the future of work.
Big questions there. And globally, fierce competition for skilled young workers.
Countries are pulling out all the stops to attract and retain them.
Big time, like Portugal, tax incentives to lure young professionals.
Shows how important skilled labor is to the economy. Now, this next story, pretty wild. Elon Musk, as an advisor to the Trump administration, sent an email to all U.S. federal workers demanding they list their weekly accomplishments or resign.
Talk about bold.
Raises concerns about employee rights, potential overreach.
It'll be interesting to watch how this unfolds.
Back to the automotive industry. BMW announced a delay in their electric vehicle production plans at their mini plant in Oxford.
Citing uncertainties, especially around government policies on electric vehicles.
Makes you realize how tricky that transition to electric is for car manufacturers. Okay, this next one's a big one for the crypto world. Bybit, a crypto platform, reported a massive theft of Ethereum.
Massive. We're talking a potential loss of $1.5 billion worth of Ethereum.
Could be the biggest crypto heist yet.
Raises serious concerns about security, the risks of those crypto investments.
Definitely a story we'll be following closely. Now, back to the UK. The energy regulator, Ofgem, they're cracking down on energy companies engaging in something called back billing, charging customers for energy used over a year ago.
Which isn't allowed.
But some companies are still doing it.
Apparently, Ofgem issued a warning, stop it or face fines. Good news for consumers, shows the regulators are trying to protect them.
Now, in a move that has privacy advocates concerned, Apple's removing its advanced data protection feature for UK customers.
That end-to-end encryption for user data.
Why the removal?
UK government requested access, Apple decided to pull it. Highlights the tension between privacy, encryption, and law enforcement, you know?
Definitely a tricky balance.
Yeah.
Okay, some potentially good news for the crypto world. Coinbase, the exchange, claims the SEC will drop its lawsuit against them.
They were accused of violating investment laws.
And now?
Seems they've reached an agreement. No fines, no changes to their operations.
Big win for Coinbase, maybe a positive sign for the whole crypto industry.
Coinbase's CEO, Brian Armstrong, credits crypto voters, suggesting the crypto community is gaining political influence.
Interesting. Back in the UK, Ofgem, they're facing pushback on their proposed changes to energy billing.
The goal is to give customers more control over standing charges, those fixed fees.
What's the issue?
Critics say it's too complicated, won't really address the high energy costs.
Tough situation. Okay, last one, and it's a fun one. Apple's unveiled a new, budget-friendly iPhone.
The iPhone 16, most affordable model yet, but still with advanced AI capabilities.
Reaching a wider market.
Exactly.
Smart move. Now, unfortunately, not so good news for Boeing. More delays and financial setbacks with the new Air Force One planes.
Pushing delivery back to 2027, maybe even 2028.
Project's been troubled from the start.
Definitely a tough one.
Now, a story with some global implications. U.S. and Ukraine. They're in talks over a minerals deal.
Would give the U.S. access to Ukraine's mineral resources. But it's sparking debate, concerns about exploitation, strategic implications.
Definitely a sensitive situation.
Okay.
To end on a lighter note, Canadian maple water producers, they want to make tree sap the next big beverage.
They're marketing it as natural, sustainable, potential health benefits.
Maple water, huh? We'll see if it catches on.
Now, one last thing. Back to technology. Experts are concerned about the potential impact of quantum computing on digital security.
Yeah, the power of those quantum computers, they can break our current encryption.
Exactly. Threat to data security, privacy.
Big problem.
But thankfully, researchers and companies are on it, developing new security standards.
Good to know.
Okay, one final story for today. Calls for sanctions against Bidzina Ivanishvili, Georgia's richest man, former prime minister.
What are the allegations?
Corruption links to Russia could have big consequences for Georgia.
For sure. Now, to end on a slightly less optimistic note, Germany's car industry facing a real crisis.
They've been hit by high energy costs, competition, the expensive shift to electric vehicles.
Makes you realize how quickly things can change.
Ultimately.
And finally, social media. Kindness influencers. Seems positive, but there's criticism.
Some argue it's more about views and likes than genuine altruism.
Makes you think.
It does.
Well, that was quite a rundown.
Yeah, those kindness influencers, tough to gauge sometimes. But Spain, now that's a positive story. Really impressive how they're outperforming other European countries.
Definitely a bright spot. So earlier you mentioned quantum computing and its potential impact on cybersecurity. Sounds pretty scary.
It is a serious concern, no doubt. Quantum computers, with their processing power, could crack the encryption methods we use every day. Imagine the threat to data security, privacy.
It's like something out of the sci-fi movie turning into reality.
Exactly. But the good news is, it's not being ignored. Researchers, tech companies, they're working hard, developing new encryption methods to resist these quantum attacks. It's a race, a constant race, but progress is being made.
That's a relief. At least someone's on top of it. Now, let's talk about those kindness influencers on social media. On the surface, it seems like a good thing, spreading positivity. But there are ethical concerns.
Right. You have to question the motivation sometimes. Are these acts of kindness truly genuine or just for show, to get more views and likes?
Yeah, it's a blurry line. When does generosity become exploitation?
Yeah.
It's a tough question, especially in the world of social media.
It's a new frontier, ethically speaking. We're still figuring things out, but it's a conversation we need to have.
Definitely. Now, let's shift gears to trade. President Trump's tariffs, they've really reignited the debate about the future of global trade.
Big time. Are we moving away from free trade, globalization? Are we entering a new era of protectionism? It's a big question.
It's complicated. Tariffs can protect domestic industries, but they can also make things more expensive for consumers and even trigger retaliation from other countries.
It's a balancing act with global repercussions. But speaking of global economies, Spain's success is a breath of fresh air. They're doing so well compared to other European nations.
What's their secret?
A combination of factors, really. They've got a booming tourism industry, strategic government investments, a resilient job market. They've adapted well to the current economic climate.
It's inspiring to see proof that growth is always possible, even when things seem uncertain. Spain's success story gives you hope, right? Like even in tough times, there's a way through.
Definitely. Adaptability is key. Now, before we wrap up, a couple more stories. There's a growing movement to ban merchandise that, well, glorifies Pablo Escobar.
I can see why, yeah. Seems off to, profit from someone who caused so much harm.
Complicated for sure, but the focus should be on remembering the victims, working towards peace, and on a totally different note, Germany's car industry, once so dominant, now facing a crisis.
It's hard to imagine. German engineering, what happened?
Multiple pressures, energy costs are up, hurting their profits. Competition from foreign automakers is intense. And the switch to electric vehicles, well, that's expensive and complex.
Sounds like it's got their work cut out for them.
Thinking back on everything we've talked about today, one thing that stands out is the sheer speed of tech change. AI, quantum computing, feels like a new era is starting.
It's exciting, no doubt. But we also need to think about the ethics of it all. Make sure technology is used for good, not for harm.
Absolutely. So much potential to solve the world's problems, but also to create new ones. Big responsibility.
Couldn't agree more. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up today's financial news roundup.
It has been a fascinating journey through the world of finance, that's for sure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for more news and insights.